Right now, something is stirring in the world, a sense of urgency and warning that feels different from ordinary news cycles. July 28th has become a date whispered about in certain circles as a moment charged with spiritual significance, a warning that is shaking nations in ways many don't fully understand. The headlines may focus on conflicts, economic shifts, or political upheavals, but beneath these surface stories, there is a deeper call to pay attention, a divine alarm signaling that the world is on the brink of profound change. This isn't just another news story, it's a spiritual moment that demands careful thought and reflection. Across countries and continents, we see tensions escalating, societies becoming increasingly divided, and an unseen force at work disrupting the usual flow of politics and media narratives. This has sparked a renewed interest in ancient prophecies and spiritual warnings that seem to echo today's events. It's as if the fabric of our world is being shaken not only by human actions, but by powers beyond what the eye can see. For many, this July 28th warning is a call to wake up and see beyond the chaos, to understand that current affairs carry messages that touch the very soul of nations. This awakening challenges us to go beyond the surface news. Instead of accepting media narratives at face value, we are urged to dig deeper, to ask critical questions about who controls the information we receive and why. How do media, politics, and powerful institutions shape what we know and what they hide from us? The July 28th moment is a powerful reminder that truth is often buried beneath layers of spin and censorship. To grasp its full meaning, we must be willing to explore the hidden connections between world events, spiritual realities, and the forces that manipulate society. So as we begin this journey, the question is clear: will we heed the warning shaking nations today? Or will we continue to look away, caught in distractions and lies? This video invites you to think critically, to open your eyes to the deeper truths shaping our world, and to consider what role each of us plays in the unfolding story of our times. In the midst of the noise that dominates news cycles, there is a perspective that helps us see what others often miss. This approach views world events not merely as isolated incidents, but as part of a larger spiritual and political narrative. It's an analytical lens that connects the dots between biblical prophecy, language manipulation, and power structures operating behind the scenes. While many focus on surface-level politics or sensational headlines, this perspective urges us to uncover the hidden agendas influencing media and society. At its core, this way of thinking recognizes that prophecy isn't just about predicting the future, it's about understanding how spiritual principles intersect with current affairs, how ancient warnings still echo in today's political decisions, social upheavals, and media distortions. The real power lies in recognizing that events unfolding on the global stage may be signs of a larger spiritual battle for the soul of nations. This view encourages a critical look at who benefits from shaping public opinion and how media narratives can serve as tools of control. Language plays a crucial role in this analysis. Words don't just describe reality, they shape it. Political rhetoric, news framing, and media censorship all work to direct public perception. When language is controlled, so is thought. This is why understanding how power uses media and language is essential to breaking through the fog of misinformation. It's a reminder that truth can be elusive when filtered through propaganda and spin, and that only by thinking deeply and critically can we approach a clearer understanding of what's really happening. Ultimately, this lens equips us to question the official stories and look for the spiritual and political realities underneath. It's a call to be vigilant and discerning, especially when dealing with issues of democracy, censorship, and societal manipulation. The goal is not just to be informed, but to be empowered, to see the truth beyond media narratives, and to understand the forces that shape our world today. Most people take the news at face value, assuming that what they hear and see is a full picture of reality. But beneath the daily headlines, there are unseen forces at work, forces that manipulate information, shape policies, and influence societal beliefs. These forces operate quietly but powerfully, affecting everything from elections and economic policies to public opinion and cultural norms. Recognizing these hidden dynamics is essential to understanding the true nature of current affairs. One of the key aspects of this hidden influence is the role of power elites who control media and political narratives. They use their platforms to steer the conversation, emphasize certain stories, and silence others. This manipulation is subtle but effective, creating a version of reality that supports their interests. For example, stories that might reveal corruption or spiritual decay are often downplayed, while sensational or divisive topics take center stage to distract and divide the public. This calculated control impacts democracy itself by limiting true access to information. At the same time, spiritual dimensions are frequently ignored in mainstream analysis, yet they play a vital role in shaping global events. These unseen spiritual realities often underpin the social and political upheavals we witness. From increasing moral confusion to rising societal unrest, the spiritual shaking is reflected in every part of our world. When the media ignores or ridicules these elements, it leaves the public blind to the full picture, reinforcing a superficial understanding of complex problems. This hidden battle behind the headlines demands that we look deeper beyond the scripted news and official statements. By questioning power and its control over information, we start to uncover truths that are inconvenient for those in charge. It's a call to resist complacency and to seek knowledge that connects political events with spiritual realities. Only then can we begin to grasp the full scope of what is shaking the nations today. Dates in history often carry more significance than meets the eye. July 28th is one such date, packed with layers of symbolic meaning both historically and spiritually. While many see it simply as another day on the calendar, there are deeper currents flowing beneath, linking ancient prophecies to what unfolds today. This connection invites us to reconsider the timeline of current events not as random or coincidental, but as part of a grander plan, one that shakes the foundation of nations. From biblical times to modern history, dates have served as markers for divine intervention or judgment. July 28th appears repeatedly in various religious and cultural contexts as a day of reckoning, warning, or transformation. This symbolism isn't widely discussed in mainstream media, but it holds powerful clues for those seeking to understand the spiritual dimension behind political upheaval, societal unrest, and economic turmoil. When viewed through this lens, we can see that the events converging around this date are part of a larger narrative demanding attention. In current affairs, July 28th has witnessed important political shifts, unexpected crises, and announcements that ripple through the global economy and media. These incidents often come cloaked in official explanations that fail to capture the true depth of their impact. It's as if this date acts like a spiritual signal, calling us to look beyond daily distractions and focus on the forces shaping our world, forces that threaten to shake the very pillars of democracy, freedom, and truth. Understanding the symbolic meaning of July 28th invites a more nuanced awareness. It challenges us to question the timing and significance of unfolding events and to discern the spiritual messages that may be hidden in plain sight. This approach doesn't reject facts or rational analysis, but enriches it by integrating a prophetic perspective. It reminds us that dates matter, not just as history, but as spiritual signposts that guide us toward deeper truths. One of the most powerful tools shaping today's society is language, especially how media uses words to influence public perception. Language doesn't just report facts, it frames reality. This subtle control over language directs how we think, what we fear, and which narratives dominate our culture. When powerful media outlets choose what to emphasize or omit, they shape the way entire populations understand current affairs and societal issues. The way news stories are presented, the choice of headlines, the tone of commentary all play into a larger strategy of controlling thought. This is not always a conscious conspiracy, but often a systemic issue where economic interests, political affiliations, and cultural biases influence the media. Critical thinkers must recognize that what we see and hear in the news is often filtered through layers of spin designed to protect power structures and distract from deeper realities. This power of language extends beyond words to include censorship and silence. Stories that expose corruption, question government policies, or highlight spiritual decay may be downplayed or ignored entirely. Meanwhile, sensationalism and fear-mongering dominate headlines to keep audiences engaged but divided. This media manipulation undermines democracy by limiting access to truthful information and discouraging critical debate on issues vital to society's well-being. Understanding this dynamic encourages us to become more discerning consumers of news. It's a call to listen carefully, ask what's not being said, and seek alternative perspectives. By exposing how media controls language, we uncover the mechanisms behind societal manipulation and begin to reclaim our ability to think freely, see clearly, and act wisely in turbulent times. Fear is one of the most effective tools used to control societies. Across the world, governments and media outlets frequently tap into this primal emotion to influence behavior and limit freedom. Whether it's threats of economic collapse, pandemics, or political unrest, fear creates a climate where people accept restrictions, give up rights, or turn against each other. This manipulation of fear keeps societies divided and distracted from real issues. The use of fear in current affairs often masks deeper agendas. For example, when fear dominates public discourse, critical thinking tends to fade, making populations vulnerable to propaganda and misinformation. This strategy benefits those in power by suppressing dissent and directing attention away from systemic problems like corruption, economic inequality, or loss of democratic freedoms. Fear becomes a tool not just to control minds, but to reshape society according to the desires of elites. This approach also impacts spiritual awareness. Fear clouds judgment and dulls moral clarity, making it difficult for communities to recognize the spiritual decay behind many crises. When people live in constant anxiety, they are less likely to engage in meaningful dialogue or seek the truth beneath media narratives. The spiritual shaking of nations is thus both a consequence and a cause of widespread fear, creating a vicious cycle that perpetuates societal control. Recognizing the manipulation of fear invites a powerful response, courage. It calls individuals and communities to resist panic, question official narratives, and seek peace and clarity through faith and reason. This resistance is vital to breaking the cycle of control and reclaiming true freedom, the freedom to discern truth, to challenge deception, and to rebuild societies grounded in justice and hope. What we often see as geopolitical conflicts and wars have a deeper spiritual dimension that rarely makes it into mainstream analysis. These global confrontations reflect a larger unseen battle between forces of light and darkness, good and evil. Recognizing this spiritual warfare adds a crucial layer of understanding to current events, highlighting why conflicts persist and escalate despite efforts for peace. Many of today's wars and political tensions are fueled by spiritual decay, a loss of moral compass that leaves societies vulnerable to manipulation and chaos. The struggle for power, control, and resources is intertwined with spiritual forces seeking to destabilize nations and silence voices of truth and justice. This perspective helps explain why solutions remain elusive and why peace seems so fragile in the modern world. The media often frames conflicts in purely political or economic terms, but ignoring the spiritual aspect leaves the analysis incomplete. When spiritual decay grows unchecked, it manifests as violence, division, and injustice. Conversely, movements towards spiritual renewal often coincide with hope, reconciliation, and societal healing. Understanding this spiritual battle equips viewers to see beyond propaganda and recognize the moral stakes involved in global affairs. This awareness calls for a renewed focus on spiritual principles in public discourse and personal reflection. It urges individuals to pray, advocate for justice, and seek truth courageously. Only by acknowledging the spiritual reality behind conflicts can societies begin to heal the deep wounds shaking the nations today. Economic instability isn't just about numbers and markets, it reflects deeper spiritual and societal unrest. When we see stock crashes, inflation spikes, or supply chain disruptions, These are often symptoms of a larger shaking happening beneath the surface. The economy is a complex system deeply connected to the values, trust, and integrity of societies. When spiritual decay sets in, it weakens these foundations, leading to financial turmoil that affects everyone. Behind the scenes, powerful elites often manipulate economic conditions to serve their interests, using crises to consolidate power and control. This creates cycles of boom and bust that keep the majority in uncertainty and dependence. Media outlets typically explain these events with technical jargon or blame external factors, but rarely do they connect these economic shifts with spiritual or moral decline in leadership and society. This disconnect leaves the public vulnerable to confusion and despair, making it harder to see how economic challenges are linked to broader issues like corruption, greed, and loss of ethical values. The shaking of the economy is not accidental. It's a reflection of a spiritual crisis in nations where greed often replaces justice and compassion. Recognizing this helps us understand why economic recovery requires more than policy changes. It demands spiritual renewal. Ultimately, economic turmoil is a wake-up call. It invites individuals, communities, and nations to reassess their priorities and values. To rebuild economies that serve the common good, there must be a return to truth, integrity, and accountability at every level. Only then can we stabilize not just markets, but the very soul of society. In any functioning democracy, transparency and truth are essential. However, there is growing evidence that government agencies and mainstream media often work together in ways that limit truthful reporting and manipulate public opinion. This collusion serves agendas that prioritize control over citizens rather than empowering them. Understanding this relationship is critical to seeing how narratives about democracy, security, and freedom are shaped behind closed doors. This hidden agenda isn't always openly declared. Instead, it operates through subtle means like selective reporting, framing of issues, and even censorship of dissenting voices. Powerful actors use media platforms to legitimize policies that might otherwise face resistance, creating a manufactured consent that stifles genuine democratic debate. When this happens, citizens are no longer able to make fully informed decisions because they receive a distorted version of reality. Such collusion undermines trust not only in political leaders but also in the institutions designed to protect freedom and fairness. As a result, skepticism grows and societies become more polarized. The erosion of trust is a direct threat to democracy itself because it opens the door to authoritarianism and further control over free speech and information. For viewers, recognizing this hidden agenda means questioning not only what the news says but why it says it and who benefits. It encourages active investigation beyond mainstream sources and supports the demand for accountability in both government and media. True democracy depends on an informed and engaged public, one that refuses to accept collusion and manipulation as the status quo. Censorship has become a powerful force shaping what society is allowed to hear, think, and discuss. This silencing is especially dangerous when it targets voices that seek to warn, challenge, or offer spiritual insight. Prophetic voices, which historically have been crucial for guiding nations through moral crises, are increasingly marginalized or dismissed in today's media landscape. This restriction threatens not only freedom of speech, but also the ability of societies to learn and grow from critical truths. The suppression of these voices often occurs under the guise of protecting public order or combating misinformation. Yet many times it functions to protect powerful interests by preventing uncomfortable truths from reaching the public. When spiritual warnings or critical analyses about societal decay are censored, the public loses important perspectives that could lead to awareness and change. This environment creates a culture of fear where individuals hesitate to speak out or question dominant narratives. It diminishes the richness of public discourse and contributes to a society that is less resilient and less able to confront its challenges honestly. Censorship of prophetic voices also deepens spiritual blindness, leaving people less able to recognize the moral and spiritual issues underlying current crises. Breaking through this silence requires courage and vigilance. Viewers must seek out these marginalized voices, support platforms that promote free speech, and cultivate critical thinking. Only by listening to a full spectrum of perspectives, especially those offering spiritual wisdom, can societies begin to heal and prepare for the difficult days ahead. The issue of false prophets is not just ancient history. It remains a pressing concern in modern society. False prophets today often come disguised as trusted leaders, influencers, or media figures who promote deceptive narratives that serve personal or political gain rather than truth. Their messages confuse, mislead, and divide societies, contributing to the chaos and mistrust we see in current affairs. These deceptive voices often exploit people's fears, hopes, and uncertainties. By promising quick fixes, simplistic solutions, or illusions of security, they divert attention from the real underlying problems, whether spiritual decay, systemic corruption, or societal manipulation. False prophets may also twist facts and spiritual teachings to justify harmful agendas, making it difficult for the average person to discern truth from falsehood. Mainstream media sometimes amplifies these deceptive messages, either unknowingly or as part of larger agendas, adding layers of complexity to the public discourse. This further blurs the line between truth and lies, leaving many confused and disillusioned. The prevalence of misinformation and propaganda underscores the importance of spiritual discernment and critical analysis in today's world. Recognizing the presence of false prophets means cultivating wisdom and vigilance. It requires viewers to ask tough questions, test teachings against ethical and spiritual principles, and remain anchored in authentic values. Only by exposing deception and embracing truth can societies begin to repair the divisions shaking their foundations. Around the world today, we are witnessing a surge of natural disasters, pandemics, and social unrest that echo patterns described in ancient texts. These events are more than coincidences. They carry symbolic weight that points to deeper spiritual realities affecting nations. Natural calamities and societal upheaval often act as wake-up calls, shaking the foundations of communities and forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about their path forward. When storms rage, earthquakes strike, or disease spreads, they expose vulnerabilities in our systems, both physical and moral. The connection between environmental turmoil and social chaos reflects a broader spiritual shaking. It's as if nature itself responds to the moral and spiritual decay of humanity, mirroring the biblical idea that the earth groans under the weight of injustice and sin. This perspective urges us to view these disasters not just as isolated tragedies, but as interconnected signs demanding reflection and change. Social unrest, too, reflects this spiritual crisis. Protests, division, and rising tensions across nations reveal a society struggling to find justice, unity, and truth. These conflicts are often fueled by deeper issues like corruption, inequality, and loss of moral direction. When spiritual blindness prevails, the result is chaos that threatens to tear societies apart. Recognizing these patterns helps us understand that current events are part of a larger story, one written across both heaven and earth. This awareness doesn't mean fatalism. Rather, it calls for action rooted in hope and responsibility. By seeing the echoes of prophecy in today's world, we gain insight into how to respond wisely. It invites spiritual awakening and practical efforts to restore justice and care for creation, helping to heal the shaking nations and prepare for a better future. Amidst the chaos and confusion, there is a quiet but powerful movement growing beneath the surface, a spiritual awakening sweeping across communities and individuals worldwide. This awakening is not always visible in headlines, but it challenges the dominant narratives and calls people back to deeper truths, hope, and renewal. It's a hopeful sign that despite widespread manipulation and decay, the human spirit longs for justice, peace, and meaning. This spiritual revival often starts in unexpected places, small gatherings, online groups, and personal transformations where people reject superficial media messages and seek authentic understanding. It emphasizes connection to a higher power, moral clarity, and community healing. This shift represents a reclaiming of spiritual sovereignty in a world increasingly controlled by materialism, censorship, and fear. This awakening also brings increased awareness of societal manipulation and a refusal to accept false narratives. People are beginning to ask tougher questions about politics, media, and culture, blending faith with critical thinking. It's a movement that values truth and courage, inspiring activism and personal responsibility in confronting injustice and rebuilding society. While still growing, this awakening has the potential to counterbalance the forces shaking nations today. It invites viewers to join a path of renewal, one that combines spiritual depth with social engagement, and to become beacons of light in turbulent times. Words are not neutral, they shape reality. The language used in politics, media, and public discourse carries immense power to influence how societies think, feel, and act. Controlling language means controlling perception, which in turn shapes policy and social behavior. This concept is crucial to understanding how power operates behind the scenes in today's world, where the battle over truth is often fought in the realm of words. Political rhetoric, media framing, and propaganda all serve as tools to direct public opinion. The choice of words can calm fears or inflame divisions, clarify truth or obscure it. Those who control these narratives shape what is considered acceptable to say and think, often marginalizing dissenting voices or inconvenient facts. This manipulation undermines democracy by limiting genuine dialogue and critical thinking. Recognizing this power urges viewers to listen carefully and question the language used in news and politics. Are terms like security, freedom, or terrorism being used to inform or to manipulate? Understanding the influence of language helps people become more discerning consumers of information, enabling them to see beyond surface narratives and engage with deeper truths. Ultimately, the fight for honest language is a fight for freedom itself. When words are free, societies can hold leaders accountable, debate openly, and move toward justice. Protecting this freedom is essential to resisting the societal manipulation that shakes nations today. Throughout history, biblical prophecy has provided a framework for understanding the rise and fall of nations, moral decay, and divine judgment. In today's news, many patterns emerge that closely align with these ancient warnings, suggesting that prophecy is not only historical, but deeply relevant to the current state of world affairs. Recognizing these patterns helps us interpret events beyond political spin and sensationalism. Key themes such as corruption, pride, injustice, and idolatry appear repeatedly in modern headlines, from government scandals to cultural shifts and economic crises. These are not isolated problems, but symptoms of deeper spiritual issues foretold by prophecy. This continuity between ancient scripture and current events invites viewers to see the present moment as part of a larger divine narrative, calling nations to repentance and renewal. While prophecy can sound ominous, it also offers hope and direction. It reminds us that despite chaos, a moral order exists, and that nations can change course if they return to justice, humility, and faith. This perspective encourages viewers to think critically about world news, not just as entertainment or politics, but as signs pointing towards spiritual realities that impact society's future. By identifying biblical patterns in today's events, viewers gain a unique lens to analyze news critically and thoughtfully. It inspires a deeper engagement with both the world and faith, urging vigilance and hope as nations face profound shaking and the possibility of renewal. One of the greatest threats facing societies today is complacency, the quiet acceptance of troubling signs without action or reflection. Despite clear warnings emerging from current events and prophetic patterns, many people choose to ignore or downplay them. This attitude is dangerous because it leaves nations vulnerable to deeper crises, both spiritual and political, that could have been averted or softened through vigilance. Complacency often stems from distraction, fatigue, or disbelief. In a world overwhelmed by constant news and conflicting information, it's easy to become numb or cynical, yet ignoring prophetic warnings doesn't make the underlying issues disappear. Instead, it allows problems to grow unchecked. This passivity not only weakens societal resilience, but also undermines democracy by fostering disengagement from critical public debates. Spiritually, complacency reflects a lack of awareness and a disconnect from deeper realities. When people fail to recognize the moral decay and societal manipulation shaping their environment, they lose the ability to respond effectively. This spiritual blindness accelerates the shaking of nations as it prevents repentance, reform, and renewal. Recognizing complacency as a real threat calls viewers to awaken and engage. It challenges individuals to pay close attention, ask hard questions, and take responsibility for their role in society. The alternative is a continuation of decline, one that prophetic warnings aim to prevent. This moment demands courage, reflection, and action. Ancient prophetic writings have long served as guides to understanding the hidden forces shaping history and society. These texts reveal patterns of power, deception, justice, and renewal that repeat through time. When applied to modern events, they offer a unique framework for uncovering truths that mainstream narratives often conceal or ignore. Prophetic literature highlights how societal decay often begins with moral compromise and progresses through cycles of judgment and restoration. These writings expose the consequences of pride, corruption, and injustice, forces visible in today's politics, media, and economy. By studying these texts, viewers gain insight into why nations face crises and how they might find a path to healing. Importantly, prophetic writings also emphasize the role of spiritual accountability and hope. They remind societies that despite judgment, redemption is possible through repentance and a return to higher principles. This dual focus encourages both critical analysis and spiritual openness, making it a powerful tool for navigating current affairs. Engaging with prophetic insights empowers viewers to look beyond surface events, identify hidden agendas, and embrace a hopeful vision for the future. It fosters a mindset that values truth, justice, and spiritual renewal as essential to overcoming the challenges shaking the nations today. Faith and critical thinking are often seen as opposites, but today's complex world demands they work together. Navigating current affairs requires not only spiritual awareness, but also intellectual rigor, questioning narratives, analyzing evidence, and seeking truth. This intersection enriches both faith and understanding, enabling people to resist manipulation and engage meaningfully with societal issues. Critical thinking challenges blind acceptance of media narratives, political rhetoric, and cultural trends. It encourages skepticism toward easy answers and exposes contradictions or biases. When grounded in faith, this approach becomes more than skepticism. It becomes a quest for truth, rooted in moral and spiritual values. Faith provides the ethical foundation and hope needed to confront difficult realities. It motivates individuals to pursue justice, speak out against corruption, and care for the vulnerable. Combined with critical thinking, faith becomes a tool for discernment, helping viewers see both the seen and unseen forces shaping society. This balanced approach equips viewers to be informed, engaged citizens who resist deception and advocate for positive change. It invites a deeper dialogue about how spiritual truths and rational inquiry together can guide nations through times of shaking and uncertainty. In times of national crisis, prayer and intercession have historically played vital roles in guiding communities through turmoil. Prayer is more than personal devotion. It's a powerful collective act that connects people to spiritual wisdom and strength. In an age marked by societal manipulation and political upheaval, prayer offers a means to counter fear and confusion with hope and clarity. Intercession involves standing in the gap, praying on behalf of others, including leaders, communities, and nations. This practice acknowledges that change often requires spiritual intervention alongside practical action. It invites divine guidance to reveal hidden truths, inspire justice, and protect freedoms threatened by censorship and deception. Media and politics may shape public opinion, but prayer influences the unseen spiritual realms that impact all events. It empowers believers to take responsibility beyond passive observation and become active participants in their society's destiny. Through prayer, communities find resilience, courage, and unity to confront challenges shaking their nations. Encouraging prayer and intercession doesn't reject critical analysis but complements it. Together, they form a holistic response, engaging mind and spirit to face the complex crises of our times with wisdom and faith. Globalism promises unity and cooperation, but often comes with hidden costs, especially the erosion of national sovereignty. As global power consolidates, individual nations risk losing control over their laws, economies, and cultural identities. This shift raises critical questions about democracy, freedom, and who really holds power behind the scenes. The push for global governance can undermine local decision-making, making it easier for elites to enforce policies that may not reflect the will of the people. Media narratives often promote globalism as progress, but critics highlight how it can serve as a tool for centralizing control, suppressing dissent, and diluting accountability. From a spiritual and societal perspective, this loss of sovereignty reflects a deeper battle for identity and moral direction. Nations rooted in particular faiths, cultures, and values face pressure to conform to broader, sometimes secular or materialistic agendas. This tension contributes to the shaking of societies struggling to maintain their integrity. Understanding the complexities of globalism encourages viewers to question simplistic narratives and advocate for balanced approaches that protect democratic freedoms while promoting cooperation. It calls for vigilance to ensure that global progress doesn't come at the expense of spiritual and political liberty. Media holds immense power to shape public understanding, but this power is double-edged. On one side, the media can inform, educate, and hold leaders accountable. On the other, it can deceive, manipulate, and promote hidden agendas. Today's news landscape is a battleground where truth and falsehood compete, and discerning viewers must navigate this complexity carefully. Often, media outlets choose stories and angles based on political bias, corporate interests, or ratings rather than pure truth. Sensationalism and fear-based reporting dominate, distracting the public from deeper issues like corruption, censorship, and societal decay. This manipulation creates confusion and division, undermining democratic processes and social trust. At the same time, genuine journalism continues to expose injustice and inform citizens worldwide. The challenge lies in separating fact from propaganda and seeking multiple sources to form a balanced view. Viewers must learn to critically evaluate media content and recognize attempts to shape opinions through selective reporting or emotional appeals. Ultimately, media can either strengthen democracy or weaken it. The choice depends on consumers' awareness and willingness to demand transparency and accountability. By engaging thoughtfully with the news, viewers reclaim their power and contribute to a society where media serves truth rather than control. The global pandemic exposed not only a health crisis, but also revealed complex layers of control and messaging. Official narratives have dominated media coverage, but beneath the surface lie hidden agendas that shape public perception and policy. Understanding these agendas is vital for anyone seeking truth and freedom in uncertain times. Governments and global institutions use the pandemic to enforce unprecedented restrictions, often limiting civil liberties and increasing surveillance. While many measures were necessary for health reasons, some decisions appear to serve broader goals, strengthening centralized control and shaping future societal norms. Media coverage frequently downplayed alternative perspectives, creating an environment where dissent was labeled dangerous or irresponsible. This controlled narrative affects democracy by limiting open debate and silencing voices calling for transparency or questioning official data. It highlights how crises can become tools for expanding power under the guise of public safety. Recognizing these patterns helps viewers understand the importance of vigilance and critical thinking in times of emergency. The pandemic's lessons extend beyond health. They reveal how easily societies can be manipulated through fear and misinformation. To protect freedom and truth, individuals must seek diverse information sources, demand accountability, and engage in community dialogue grounded in respect and fact. In a world flooded with information, spiritual deception is one of the most subtle and dangerous threats. It can take many forms, from false teachings and misleading ideologies to cultural trends that distract from core values. Recognizing this deception requires vigilance, discernment, and a commitment to truth grounded in faith and reason. Spiritual deception often operates by appealing to emotions or desires rather than truth. It can distort moral clarity and lead societies away from justice and righteousness. This misdirection contributes to the shaking of nations by weakening the spiritual foundations that sustain healthy communities and ethical governance. Media and culture sometimes amplify these deceptive messages, making it harder for individuals to distinguish truth from falsehood. This flood of confusion causes doubt, division, and disillusionment, creating fertile ground for manipulation by powerful interests. The response is a call to spiritual and intellectual alertness, encouraging viewers to study foundational truths, engage in community discernment, and reject complacency. Vigilance in recognizing deception strengthens societies by preserving moral integrity and fostering unity amid challenges. Even amid warnings and judgment, hope remains a powerful force that sustains individuals and nations. Prophetic messages are not only about consequences, but also about the possibility of renewal and redemption. This hope inspires resilience and motivates positive change in the face of shaking and uncertainty. Hope grounded in faith encourages communities to seek justice, reconciliation, and healing. It reminds us that no matter how deep the crisis, transformation is possible when people turn back to truth, humility, and compassion. This hopeful outlook contrasts with despair, offering a path forward that is both realistic and spiritually empowering. Media and public discourse often overlook this hopeful dimension, focusing instead on fear or conflict. Yet hope is essential to overcoming societal manipulation and spiritual decay. It fuels activism, inspires prayer, and strengthens bonds between people committed to rebuilding broken systems. Viewers are invited to embrace this hope as a catalyst for personal and collective renewal. By holding on to hope, societies can navigate judgment with courage and move toward a future shaped by justice and peace. As nations face profound shaking and uncertainty, preparation becomes a vital responsibility. This preparation is not just physical or political, but deeply spiritual and intellectual. Individuals and communities must equip themselves with knowledge, faith, and practical action to face the challenges ahead. Personal responsibility includes cultivating critical thinking, engaging in informed dialogue, and standing up against injustice and deception. It also means nurturing spiritual strength through prayer, reflection, and ethical living. Together, these efforts build resilience that can withstand societal pressures and manipulation. On a national level, citizens must demand transparency, uphold democratic values, and advocate for policies that promote justice and freedom. Protecting the integrity of institutions and resisting attempts to concentrate power ensures that nations remain capable of responding effectively to crises. Preparing well is an act of hope and courage. It acknowledges the reality of shaking while affirming the possibility of renewal. This call to action empowers viewers to be active participants in shaping the future grounded in truth and faith. July 28th stands as a powerful wake-up call for nations and individuals alike. It reminds us that beneath the surface of current affairs lies a complex web of spiritual, political, and societal forces shaping our world. Ignoring this warning risks deeper shaking and loss. Heeding it offers a chance for renewal and transformation. This moment challenges us to look beyond media spin and political rhetoric, to question power and to seek truth with courage and discernment. It calls for spiritual vigilance, intellectual rigor, and active engagement in shaping a just and free society. Above all, it invites hope rooted in faith, justice, and the possibility of redemption. As viewers reflect on these truths, the question remains, will we respond with awareness and responsibility, or will complacency and fear continue to dominate? The future depends on the choices made today. Let this warning be a catalyst for awakening, action, and lasting change.